What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gamer, back with episode 17 of our lovely little Quack experimental podcast. Name will be revealed eventually, don't you worry about it, but who knows when that's going to be. Well, I do, but that's beside the point. Anyway, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about this week, but before we get going, I do want to say there will be a little bit of, let's call it interruption of service over the next maybe 2 weeks or so. I'm changing job as of tomorrow. I just finished my final day in my current job today, and I'm starting my new one tomorrow. Couple that with a lot of stuff and a lot of things I have to work out over the next maybe week, 2 weeks or so. Videos will be a little bit intermittent. Thankfully, I have the podcast to make up for it and anything I miss at the end of the week. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully streams, regular videos and podcast episodes will be back to normal as soon as possible. But anyway, let's go on to our first topic. Depending on what way you look at it, this is either a positive one or a negative one. I'm going to go with both just because it starts negative, but there's a somewhat positive outcome for it. So, many of you out there probably already know about the Nintendo, what they call stick drift. Now, if you're not familiar with that whole situation, you know those Nintendo Soy-Cons? Yeah, those ones, the little tiny ones that for like soy boy hands, those ones. So typically, the way they're designed, which is very poorly by the way, and the way they're manufactured, which is also very poorly, it gives rise to a significant number of people having what's called stick drift on the left hand Soy-Con. Now what that means is that the left Soy-Con, the stick on it, will just drift to the left ever so slightly. Sometimes the person's stick will actually physically just drift to the left itself. It'll become loose and your character will just move left in game. Or sometimes it will be just inside, where the stick will be perfectly in its neutral, natural position, and the stick will be moving left internally. So your character and whatever is still moving. Makes playing games a lot harder. It happened to me on one of my old Xbox One Elite controllers, my very first one before I got it repaired. It happened on that after about 2 years of use, where I can't remember what direction it would go. I think the stick would just go up or down or I don't remember. But it is something that happens with a lot of controllers. But it's got to the point where it's so bad on the Switch Soy-Cons that, well, there was a class action lawsuit filed about it. Now, Nintendo originally gave a statement about this. They said, at Nintendo, we take great pride in creating quality products, and we are continuously making improvements to them. We are aware of recent reports that some Joy-Con controllers are not responding correctly. We want our consumers to have fun with Nintendo Switch, and if anything falls short of this goal, we always encourage them to visit, and gives their support website, so we can help. Basically, I cut off the end of the sentence there, whoops. But, so they did that, the typical non-answer. Now, this was not first. A lot of people weren't happy about it because there's a significant amount of people out there to the point where there's a class action lawsuit about it. So, allegedly anyway, after a couple of days, internally, supposedly, there was a leaked memo. There's one passed around. This all just pertains to the US as it stands at first. We'll get a little bit more in detail on that now in a minute. But what happened was they basically, allegedly anyway, said that if anyone calls about stick drift on a Soy-Con, all you need to do is try troubleshoot, walk them through it as usual. If that doesn't work, get them to send it in, no charge. Inside of warranty, outside of warranty, whatever it is, send it in, no charge. If someone calls up and has previously paid to fix stick drift on a Soy-Con before, give them a refund. If you can verify their account, their details and all, and that they did actually pay for one, give them a refund. So this was all unofficial. This was all behind the scenes. This is all allegedly done through internal memos and all that were supposedly leaked. Now, if this is true, and Nintendo are actually doing this in one or several, or eventually all markets, because it does seem like they're rolling it out, clearly they fucked up. Well, clearly they have fucked up, but clearly Nintendo knows they fucked up, and they have to do something about it. This is very reminiscent of the Red Ring of Death, back on the Xbox 360. If you go back and read some of the stories, look at some of the interviews and whatnot, if you read stuff and hear stuff from Peter Moore, who was in charge of that at the time, before he eventually moved on to EA, and now I think he's at a football club somewhere in the UK, I think it's Liverpool. Could be wrong, but anyway, that's completely irrelevant. He went to Steve Ballmer, who was head of Microsoft at the time, and he ran the numbers, everything before that, and he said, listen, Steve, if we don't fix this now, it's going to cost us X amount in the long run, and it would only cost Y to do it now. And I think the numbers were something like, if we don't do it now, it will be eventually 5 or 6 billion, versus if we do it now, it will only cost 1 to 3 billion. So he just said, yeah, do it. That's it. So this is very reminiscent of that, where they're not officially saying they did anything. They're not officially claiming responsibility and fucked up, but they are doing something about it, essentially. Like, again, the Xbox 360 version. So this originally only worked in America. People were going and saying, or calling, and I was going to say Microsoft, calling Nintendo about the Joy-Con drift, and then yet they were saying, yep, send it in, it's out of warranty, we'll do it for free, it doesn't matter. So you had people in other countries trying it as well. So you had other ones, you had other people from like the UK, from Australia, from other places in Europe and whatnot too, who were calling up about the same problems. And the other representatives, or whatever, the websites and whoever the support, they were just saying, no, our stance is still the same. We can troubleshoot it for you. If that doesn't work and it's in warranty, we'll replace it or repair it. If it's outside of warranty, there will be a fee, or we just can't do anything about it. So it seems that over time, oh, my notes here say France as well. Over time, this has kind of gone a little bit further than just the US. A couple of places in Latin America have said the same thing. It's like, oh, I called up my local Nintendo distributor or my local Nintendo support, and they're fixing it for free. So it does seem that it's rolling out. So what do I think about the whole thing anyway? Well, I think it's especially funny because everyone, well, all the fanboys out there at least anyway, they all go on about the, what do they call it? Is it Nintendium? Nintendronium? Whatever they claim to make it out of. Nintendo stuff is always super high quality. Yeah, but you've probably never used anything post Super Nintendo. Everything since then has been laughably manufactured. This is no exception. And I'm not just ragging on Nintendo here. This goes for all companies. Microsoft, look at the red ring of death. Some of the Xbox 360 controllers. My Xbox One controllers. Well, one of my Xbox One controllers. There's many more of them out there. PS4 controllers. One of my DualShocks just kind of, the rubber on the sticks and all just fell apart. And it fell apart about 2 years after I bought it. Maybe, would it even have been that long? 2 years max. And I barely used it. Like, I really, really barely used it. All these companies, you have to remember, they go out. They're a business. They're out there for profit. They're going to find the best deal for them. They're not going to who can make it the best. They're going to go out there and find who can make it the cheapest. That's it. Remember, your equipment was made by the lowest bidder. It's that easy. So it's no surprise, but I will give Nintendo props for actually doing something about it. They could basically just say, fuck you, buy a new pair of Joy-Cons. So, and those things are expensive for how shit they are. But, yeah, let me know as well if you've had any issues with your Joy-Cons. I personally can't comment. I've used them probably a total of 5 minutes in my entire, 2.5 years of Switch ownership, because they're just some of the worst controllers I've ever seen on any platform in my entire life. But, yeah. Let's see how it goes, and I'm curious to see how everyone else has experience with it. Now, since next we're going to move on to some PC-related news, specifically PC hardware-related news, before we do, I want to give a quick dedication out there. I want to dedicate this part of the video to the Borderlands 2 crew, which is now the Overcooked 2 crew, because we finally finished Overcooked 2. We've moved on to the DLC, but more importantly, I want to give shout-outs to the entire group as a whole for managing to coherently, eventually, working together. Pull it through, 3 stars on every level. Especially, this one is dedicated to level 5-3. That's right, level 5-3. Just because. And we're going to go one step further. I want to dedicate this to 2 of those people in that group specifically. Because one, my boy, the Asian Persuasion, fellow teenagers, he built his proper PC earlier this year, and I'm very proud of him for joining the PC Master Race because of that. And as of yesterday, and of subsequently earlier today, when he all got it set up and all this too, another tip of the old water bottle, the Beaver sucks, because he has now joined the glorious PC Gaming Master Race. So those 2 guys can now join and play the masterpiece and everything else, the graphically demanding tour de force that is Overcooked 2 at multiple hundreds of frames per second. Because that, boyos, is just how we do it. This is to you. Very good shit, brother. Now, on to the actual proper next segment here. You know Origin PC, the pre-made PC company. They do some cool stuff. They do a huge range of everything, huge range of pre-made computers, mostly gaming stuff and high-end stuff, and kind of some custom stuff too. They've came out with a brand new special project, what they're calling the Big O. Orgasm face. But anyway, no. Anyway, moving swiftly along before I scar multiple people for life. They have this really weird, cool, super custom PC that they call it. Now it's called, like I said, the Big O. Huge case, has all the crazy LEDs, all lights everywhere, different zones, different sections, everything's broken in there, and it's water cooled, custom water cooled loop. It even has like a little output switcher to switch which version of the output you're using, like display cables or HDMI ports, all that jazz. The output switcher will come into play now in a second. And what's in this Big O, you might be asking? It's hard to say that with a straight face. But not only is there a top-end PC, but there's an Xbox One X, a PlayStation 4 Pro, and there's a built-in Nintendo Switch dock on the front, so you can just dock your Switch in and go that way. So it's kind of weird in that regard. Now, it's one of a kind and it's not for sale. People have run the numbers and stuff. It's got like I can't remember if it was an RTX Titan or an RTX 20. I think it was a Titan, but it could have been a 2080 Ti, but I want to say it was a Titan. And on top of that, they had all that stuff. They had the Xbox One X hardware. Let's try to see here. Xbox One hardware in like one corner with an Xbox One plate. Ow. Bit the inside of my cheek, and on the other they had like a PS4 Pro, and you could use the output switchers. Like, oh, I need to switch to the HDMI cable for Xbox One, boom. I need to switch to HDMI cable for the Switch or the PS4, boom. Need to go back to DisplayPort for my PC, boom. You just press that and it do it. It's a cool little project. It's cool to show off and all. It has really high-end hardware, like I said, with the RTX, and I think it was an i7 9900K or something extremely high-end in that regard. Kind of cool. Not sure what's going to happen with it, but yeah. What would you do? What would you pay? I know people kind of estimated putting all the parts and stuff together, and it came out to something like $9,000 if you were to put all that super high-end stuff in, just from the hardware side of it, like the Xbox One X, all the piping and tubing and all that stuff, the PS4 Pro, all the PC hardware, the Switch dock, all that kind of stuff. And not to mention the time and effort and everything needed. It's a cool project. Go check it out. It's called Origin PC, the Big O. Hell, I mean, they can give me one if they want. They can give me that one, and I'll figure out something to do with it. But speaking of Origin PC, Corsair has actually acquired them just a few days ago. Now, this is going to be really, really interesting because Corsair actually already make their own PCs, their own ready-made PCs. It's called a Corsair 1. It's a decent piece of hardware from what I've seen spec-wise. I've never looked at the value of it based on the cost and what you get for it, but there is some really good stuff in there, like the cooling and all that stuff, and just the hardware in general can be pretty high-end if you get the right ones. So Corsair 1, the Corsair 1 PC, will still be staying around. It will be sold separately and independently, and Origin PC will still kind of function as its own thing. This goes kind of hand in hand with, let's use it as a different comparison. This time last year, around the same time this deal was made, Corsair bought Elgato, the ones that make they make the green screen, the key light, they make the Stream Deck, they make all sorts of capture cards. They bought them around the same time last year. Now, and they still operate as Elgato. They don't operate as Corsair or Corsair Elgato. They just operate as Elgato. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this works in relation to Origin. Corsair have already come out and said you won't see Corsair branded motherboards, Corsair branded, the stuff that they don't make already. You won't see Corsair branded graphics cards. I think there is one or two of those. But yeah, you see my point. You won't see Corsair motherboards or anything along those lines. So they'll still continue making their own stuff. Now, I wonder, will all the Origin PC stuff, will it change to use Corsair power supplies, Corsair coolers, which makes perfect sense? Will it use Corsair RAM? There's so much stuff in there. Corsair SSDs. there's a lot of stuff that they could kind of keep the costs down if it's all technically one company. I'm very curious to see how that will go, especially now they might start offering stuff with internal Corsair and not Corsair, internal Elgato stuff, as well as possibly as an accessory. Maybe now you can buy a high-end gaming PC or a streaming PC, which would have a HD 60 Pro or a HD 60 4K in there, or HD 4K in there. Ow, whatever it's called. It opens up more options. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that works anyway, because Origin PC are one of the more well known. Now, not in this part of the world, but I know in the US, Origin PC are they're probably the most well known, from what I understand, pre-made gaming PC builders or custom PC builders, whatever it is, over there. So I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Are we going to see more stuff in the Corsair line from PCs? Are we going to see more stuff in the Origin line? Is stuff going to change with some of the extras they offer as well? Well, only time's going to tell on that one. But sticking with PC hardware for a second, we can talk about an upcoming piece of kit, which is specifically the NVIDIA RTX 2080 Super. Now, we all know that the 2060 Super, the 2070 Super, and the 2080 Super are already existing cards. I shouldn't say existing cards, because the 2080 Super is a real card. It is coming very, very soon. But the 2060 and 2070 have already released. So the upcoming 2080 Super, there's been leaked rumors, leaked benchmarks, all of this stuff, and there's even a few official ones out there. Now, what do a lot of... See, I wrote this notes as they were coming out. So first there were just leaked ones and whatnot. Then they moved over and got their proper official ones. So what's the deal with it? What do you need to know? Because a lot of people were very, very curious about this. A lot of people were thinking, oh, when you look at the price and performance of a 2080 and the price of a performance of a 2080 Ti, maybe a 2080 Super, which falls somewhere in between for the price and the performance you get, might be a valid, viable, almost top-end card. It is to an extent. It has a recommended retail price of $700. Good luck finding one for that. But it's still decent money and performance. Absolutely. I mean, I paid... with shipping, I paid €839 day one for my GTX 1080 Founders Edition. I paid, I think it was €1,015 back in 2011, 2012, whenever it first launched, for a GTX 690. So, you see my point. When you look at the relative performance and the cost of these, $700, give or take, for an RTX 2080 Super is very good, price versus performance-wise. Now, as expected, it's a slight upgrade over the regular 2080. Of course, it's nowhere near as good as a 2080 Ti, and we all should have expected that, because that's what the Super cards are. They're kind of a stopgap between everything. The 2060 Super is between the 2060 and the 2070. The 2070 Super is between the 2070 and the 2080. So naturally, the 2080 Super would be between the 2080 and the 2080 Ti. 2080 Ti. Think of the GTX 1070 Ti. Originally there was a 1070, 1080, then you had a 1070 Ti right in between them. So this makes perfect sense. Now, what's the deal performance-wise anyway? So on average, performance over a regular RTX 2080, you're looking between 7 to 10%. Now, those numbers obviously vary a little bit. Sometimes because you get an overclocked one, you get different overclocked ones, you get a stock one, and of course, it varies performance in different games. So, you can see the kind of average. You're getting 7 to 10% roughly, which still puts it about 15%, which is a big gap in my opinion, behind the 2080 Ti. There's cases where the gap is even bigger, but on average you're looking about 15%. Now, how does that factor in as price versus performance? Well, at least as far as you're going with MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price, it's good in terms of price versus performance, because sure, if you were to look at an RTX 2080 Ti, you're getting maybe about 15 to 20, 25%, depending on the game and the situation, more performance. However, that's a €1,000 card, minimum. Hell, that's a €1,000 recommended card. Realistically, it's 12, 13, 14, €1,500. So, price versus performance, the 2080 Super is probably going to be the new popular hotness for a while. Think of what do we have? For the longest time, the 980 was the new hotness because the 970 is one of the worst cards ever made and should not ever exist. The 980 was the hotness for a while. No, sorry, not the 980. The 980 Ti was the long-term hotness for a while. The 1080 was the long-term hotness for a while, and I guess you could say the 1080 Ti, but that didn't seem as prolific in that regards. And the 2080, maybe the 2070, I would still kind of lean to the 2080, were the current hotness for a while. So I think this, with the price and the performance, I think this will be the current hotness until the new series, the 3000 series, comes out. Hopefully early next year, hopefully right before Cyberpunk 2077 launches, so I can buy an RTX 3080 Ti and fucking destroy Cyberpunk with that, because oh my god, that would be amazing. Onto some somewhat dangerous and depressing news for the moment, but we have Disney. You know, that company who buys up everything, and depending on your position on fandoms and franchises and IPs and whatnot, may run it all into the ground. Looking at you, Star Wars, and probably the rest of the Marvel stuff after Endgame, or at least after Spider-Man Far From Home. Anyway, some Disney investors out there have been looking to expand Disney as a business, as a whole, their influence, what they own, what they can offer, etc. And they think that it would be in Disney's best interest to acquire and purchase Activision Blizzard. Now, Activision Blizzard is probably the biggest games developer and biggest games publisher on the planet. They have some of the biggest games every year, like Call of Duty. They have World of Warcraft, which is obviously one of the biggest games of all time. They have stuff like StarCraft. They have stuff like Hearthstone. They have Overwatch. That's just to name a few. They're big, massive names. And some of the studios under their guise, under their hand, they can do some interesting things. Now, when you look at it this way, because they are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, naturally it would not be a cheap investment if Activision was to buy a majority stake, or the entire company of Disney, if they were to buy it of Activision Blizzard. Now, specifically, these investors have cited the esports programming. You've got stuff like Call of Duty and whatnot. There's other ones that they do too. There's Hearthstone Championships, Overwatch, blah, blah, blah. But they've specifically looked at the esports programming, and they said that it will be a perfect fit for their network. Like, they've obviously, Disney have different networks and what they offer and all, and the upcoming Disney Plus, what they offer, this would be a great way for people in gaming and whatnot. Now, here it gets really, really questionable, because you have a lot of people out there, and I agree with this to some extent, you have some companies owning and controlling too much. This would be, it's already said that Disney is already one of these companies, but they don't really have a proper force in gaming. Now, Disney are fairly decently prevalent and pushed to the forefront in gaming a lot of the time. Kingdom Hearts is a good example. They license out a lot of their stuff to Square Enix to make Kingdom Hearts. And look at Star Wars. They license out their Star Wars license, one of the biggest licenses in the world. They license that out to EA and or potentially other companies. They make money on that. The companies can make games, and there's royalties and everything involved. Now, this is big. Disney obviously own comics. They own a massive stake in major players in comics, TV shows, animated stuff, films, everything. Everything you can think of. Music, the soundtracks of their films, everything you can think of. Pretty much except gaming. And now, this, if it were to happen and were to go through, this would give them possibly the biggest foothold in gaming there is. So that's really, really strange and really worrying for a lot of people. Now, currently, like I said, Disney licenses out their licenses to, or their IPs to other companies too, so they can do what they want with them. Now, if they were to say own Activision Blizzard, they could do all this essentially in-house. Usually, at least anyway, typically the costs might be lower in that regard. If the costs weren't lower, they would be looking for, because it's their own studios and their own properties and all their own IPs, it would just be 100% profit coming straight in. There would be no split between, say, EA and Disney because of Star Wars. It would just be all 100% back to Disney as a bigger company. You have some of these companies or some of these studios in under Activision that have significant quality and pedigree, if you will, that could do certain things. Star Wars has predominantly been a first-person shooter genre for the last since the sequel trilogy had kind of came out. And you have stuff like Raven Studios, Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Sledgehammer. Say what you want about Call of Duty, but they're still the biggest selling games every year. So they have first-party studios who are fairly prolific and fairly proficient in these games. There's obviously the Blizzard side of it, that's Overwatch. There's all these other divisions. There's the Blizzard side of it that could handle some of the RPG stuff. Look, there's your Star Wars RPG, your other IP RPG. You see how this could go? You see, this could go so many different ways. And while it would be astronomical in cost and it would be a huge move if it happened, it could realistically, there are absolutely valid reasons between all their IPs, all their progress, all their products, everything. If they were to pay out one big lump sum so that they could get everything going forward in the future forever, in-house at 100% profit, going to them, I mean, some companies, they feel like they'd be stupid not to. But next up we can talk about what I believe anyway is our first 100% official confirmed cross-generation title. Now, most companies and developers and studios out there have always said that they're making games and they're focusing on Xbox One and PS4 and whatnot, and then maybe down the line they'll worry about something else. Now, of course, that could mean that there is inevitably going to be a remaster. Let's look at Cyberpunk 2077, something that's going to be absolutely diabolical to look at and play on current consoles, but not a glorious PC. But, of course, they don't want you to talk about holding off to buy the amazing, better version of it that's still inferior to the PC version next year, or the year after release. No, they want you to go out and spend all your money on that shiny day one edition, and then, a year later, go and do it again on the next one. So it's very interesting that Dying Light 2 is, as far as I know, the very first official confirmed one that has said they will be putting out the game on Xbox One, PS4, and next generation consoles. Now, so obviously that's the Xbox 2.4 and the PS5. Now, this leaves a couple of things open to interpretation. I've always said I like precision, I like clarity and clarification. So this is unclear if that they're all going to launch at the same time, or if we're going to get current gen first, and then we're going to get next gen either at next gen or into next gen. Because if it's all at once, this means that Dying Light 2, which has kind of been, I won't say in development hell, but it's been in a bit of a sticky situation as far as development goes, not to mention, say, radio silence and all that stuff too. But it means if they were to all launch at the same time, this game is coming out at the end of next year, 2020, because the PS5, the Xbox 2.4, if they were to all come out at the same time, they're most likely coming out at the end of next year. So that means this game is about a year and a half off, after being in development for how long? Finally got a couple of trailers, but anyway. But this all brings up one other point, and I just want to throw this in there just because this is part of the beauty of the glorious PC Gaming Master Race, because you can buy the best version of the game now. You can buy the best looking version of the game now, and the best running version of the game now, and it will still be the best version of the game later, and probably even cheaper. But it's just very curious anyway to see that they have confirmed that it will be on next. Obviously there's games that we know will be out on both generations, but it's interesting to see a developer come out and officially say it. If it's going to be at the same time, if it's going to be now or sooner and later at the same time, we don't know. We just don't know. What do you think? You going to buy it on Xbox One, PS4, PS5, Xbox 2.4, or the glorious PC Gaming Master Race? But speaking of the glorious PC Gaming Master Race, we have to look at something that needs to be pointed at, laughed at, lauded, anything you can think of, derided, whatever it is. Because one of these companies has been doing something, and they've not been doing it right. And they have made, despite their huge pedigree, and one of the longest involved companies in PC gaming, have made this absolutely terrible, absolutely feature barren, absolutely shite store and service in general. That store, of course, is the Epic Games Store. That company is Epic Games. But Interestingly enough, Epic Games are finally playing around with something that they promised. Something that has been kind of a standard in most stuff for years now. Unless you're the Nintendo Switch and then you have to pay for it. And the PS4 for that matter. But back to the point anyway. PC cloud saves. Cloud saves are free on every platform that offers them. But Epic Games, despite having been able to look at any other digital storefront for over 10 years and be able to look at their features and say, this is what we need, this is what we don't, this is what we can improve on, this is basically the best something's going to be and whatnot, they didn't have cloud saves, among many, many other things that they didn't have. But they are now toying around and playing with cloud saves. However, there is a little bit of an asterisk beside this, because right now it's only for select games. Now, these select games in question are the 2 free games. I want to say, is it this week, this fortnight? But you have This War of Mine and Moonlighter. These are the 2 games that have first tipped people off that Epic Games are moving around and doing stuff, testing out cloud saves. Now, Tim Sweeney has come out and said that they will be moving cloud saves, expanding them to get different games going forward, and hopefully eventually have the entire store. Now, this... Congratulations to a multi-billion-dollar company. One of the longest in the PC market. Decades. Running on 3 decades at this point. In around that mark. Been so involved in the PC. Congratulations on this multi-billion-dollar company to catching up to one feature that almost every other platform has had for about 10 years. Congratulations. Congratulations. But let's move away from gaming just for 1 second on one extra little topic, because let's talk a little bit about comics. Now, interestingly enough, comics. I had just finished reading just a few days ago. I think it was the same night I did my podcast last week, maybe a day or 2 after. But I read through the entirety of Batman White Knight. Very different take, a very different story in Batman, and it was pretty good. There was one or two exceptionally high points, good quality overall. 1 or 2 low points I didn't really like. I'm not going to get into details here because I don't want to spoil anything on anyone, especially because DC have announced that there will be a sequel to Batman White Knight. The first issue just came out the other day and it's called Batman Curse of the White Knight. Obviously it's a sequel to Batman White Knight, and I just finished reading it, blah blah blah. But obviously it takes place as a sequel right after the events of Batman White Knight. Now I'm not going to go into spoilers, I know I said it already, but it's going to be real interesting because with what they did in Batman White Knight, it leaves a very different future and very different possibilities going forward compared to almost every other Batman arc and every other Batman series and whatever we call it, games, shows, films, series, whatever. When you look at all of that stuff, this is really the only one that leaves this possibility open. So they have a whole new arc, a whole new area that they can play around in, story-wise. And that's going to be really interesting to see what they do. Now, it's going to be a bit of a bitch for me because I can't buy individual comics here. Although, technically, now that I think about it, my new job tomorrow starts in Dublin and there are a couple of comic shops in Dublin that do individual issues. Maybe the cogs are turning, lads. The hamster is running around. Goober, you're in there. Them Parker pigs, they're all in there. Anyway, maybe that could be something I could finally get into as it's current and as it's going. That's going to be cool. Having said that, with relation to Batman White Knight, I wonder if they'll ever make an animated version of it. It is one of the more highly acclaimed comic arcs and comic series and whatnot, so it makes sense that they would do that. They typically do it with some of the more high profile and critically acclaimed ones. Think of The Killing Joke and Batman, Gotham Knight and all that. Wait, no, not Gotham Knight. What is it? The Dark Knight Returns 1 and 2. So you see my point. So it would make sense that they do this. It's also heavily rumored, although there's no actual rumor, I shouldn't say actual rumors. There's no actual evidence or anything. It's just people making stuff up if you look at it, that the next Rocksteady game, which has never been confirmed or hinted at that it's even a Batman game, might be Batman White Knight. But we don't know because it's just a really stupid rumor. But it's going to be interesting, just especially because Batman Hush, which is also highly critically acclaimed, has hit streaming services and whatnot the last few days. I'm not watching it until my Blu-ray arrives in about 2 weeks at the start of August, almost at the start of April, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I've never read Hush, but all my friends and everyone online, they all recommend it to me, so I am curious to see how close it's going to stick to the original source material, as well as what it actually turns out to be. But of course, with QuakeCon going on at the moment, well, it's only right that we talk about Doom and how we're going to rip and tear through absolutely everything. Now, of course, you would expect me to talk about Doom Eternal, the upcoming sequel to Doom 2017, Doom 2016 even. Wow, has it been that long? But no, I'm not going to talk about Doom Eternal. As great as it looks, even though they should have just called it Doom 5. Even though it is proper technically Doom 5. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about Doom Eternal. What I am going to talk about is the surprise ninja release of Doom 1, 2, and 3 on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Now, there's also, because of patents that have been filed and whatnot too, there's also hints, if you will, that Doom 64 might be getting a release down the line eventually too. Now, currently, with the patents and all and the trademarks that were filed, Doom 64 seems to only be slated for PS4 and PC. However, there's a big asterisk on that, simply because Doom 1, 2, and 3, the existing ports that just came out the other day on those platforms, were also only filed for PS4 and PC. But at the same time, they did launch on PS4 and Xbox One and Switch. So, it's interesting in that regards. Now, despite being 23 years old, Bethesda have managed to fuck this up. Despite being almost 23 years old in the case of Doom 1, obviously the longest one, Bethesda have somehow managed to fuck this up. Because they're kind of on a streak ever since Fallout 4 to try fuck shit up. Fuck their goodwill up, fuck their products up, fuck their everything up. Between Fallout 4, and just in general, paid mods in Skyrim, Fallout 76 as a whole, you could go back and forth on Elder Scrolls Online, and just some of the more recent stuff they've done as well that's, well, just been kind of questionable. But Bethesda have fucked this up. Now, they have added in a need for a Bethesda account. You needed to be logged in on a Bethesda account on the console versions of these games in order to play offline. Or the one that was causing a lot of people a lot of outrage on there, to be able to play portably on the go on the Switch, because not everyone's going to run around with their phone in their pocket constantly hotspotted to their Switch. That would just be a bad idea, even as far as the Switch goes. So yeah, it naturally there's massive backlash over this, but it gets better. It prompted the Bethesda to actually come out and say this system, this Slayers Club and all, was for participation and all. It was originally designed to be optional only. Now, this is obviously bullshit because, well, they released it like this. It was intended to be optionally only and will be patched soon to be properly optional. So you can either not log in or you can log in and play offline. There's ways around it and stuff now, but this is beside the point. This isn't even why I'm talking about this. Why I am talking about this is I am extremely surprised to see you guys out there, the console guys, the Xbox One players, the PS4 players, hell, even the Nintendo bitch players. All of you people out there, I am so surprised that you guys actually stood up for yourself for once. Usually, it's extremely rare that console players will ever stand up for themselves, they'll ever grow a backbone and say no. You guys typically have an entire 2-3 decade history of just bending over and just sit there and take whatever you're given because it's the company's way or the highway. And there's extremely few, extremely rare circumstances where you ever fight back with backlash and you're outspoken about it. Now, luckily, you did this time. Because I agree with you, what Nintendo, what Bethesda did in this situation was complete bullshit. And you had every right to fight back against it. And you did, and you got it changed. Very proud of you. Very, very proud of you for that. You see what happens when you grow a spine? This is what I've been saying PC gamers have been doing for decades. Remember Games for Windows Live? We shut that shit right down because it was bullshit. Remember paid mods? We shut that shit right down because that shit was bullshit. There's other stuff that we're working on too. Looking at you, Epic Games. Remember all them refunds that we're going to be getting because of Shenmue 3? Yeah, we spoke out about it. We got shit changed because we didn't like it. We weren't happy about it. We have freedom. See what happens? You stand up for yourself with a spine. Feels good, man. Do it more often, console guys. I applaud you. I really do. I may sound sarcastic in this well, but I'm honestly not sarcastic about it. I'm very proud that you did that. It's not often you do, but you got your way. I'm right there with you. But this brings us to the close, the final outro segment of episode 17 of our lovely little Quack experimental podcast. Q, what are you doing? What are you playing? What's going on in your world? Well, Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana has been something that I've been going on. It's enjoyable because, well, it's a fantastic game, and I'm finally getting to play the first official English translation. I can't wait to properly finish it and then go back and play some of the other stories eventually, because, well, you'll see why now in a second. But it's a big undertaking to do one of them, let alone 3 of them. So that's great in that regard. I can't wait to get my physical copy when it arrives. Wait, when does it launch? It launches, the physical version launches at the end of August. I have it ordered. It's something I need to own. And it'll be the first Switch game I bought. If you exclude this digital version, it will be the first proper Switch game I bought since 2017. Because there were no Switch games in 2018. But what else do we have going on? Well, like Trials of Mana, Pokemon Black is officially on hold as well. Yeah, that's right, it's on hold. I did say before, I mentioned that I was having a little bit of trouble getting into it. I started it really strong. I was really into it, really wanted to play it. But I just kind of waned on it, and maybe I was doing too much. Maybe I just wasn't in the mindset for it like I thought I was. But it's on hold for the moment because it was a slow start. It was a bit of a chore, a bit of a slog. And now, because Fire Emblem Three Houses is out in a few days. Well, technically it's out already, but my copy should be here within the next few days. I believe it'll be here tomorrow, because Amazon delayed some of them for some reason. And I got the notification that it was in Ireland yesterday, Saturday. So chances are I might have it Monday, if not Tuesday. And that is going to be my big focus, my big thing that I want to play. It's supposed to be a very, very long game. I've seen people say 80 hours. Fire Emblem games are typically long games. This one looks like it's going to be huge. It looks like it's going to be great. It looks like it's going to be fantastic. And I can't wait to play it. So that's going to be my big main focus. We're still working on Overcooked 2. And it's so much fun. It's so much hilarity. And of course, the hilarious chicanery is out there. We finished the main game. We have all main levels done. I think it's 6 by 5, so that's 30 levels, I think it is. We have all the main levels done, 3 stars in each, because go us. We've done a couple of the Kevin levels. We haven't unlocked all of them. Don't know if there's certain requirements. We don't know what it is. We didn't look it up. But the couple of Kevin levels, which are the secret levels, we do have. They're all 3 stars as well. Some of them are just an absolute nightmare. But on top of that, we finished the main story and we've moved on to one of the DLCs. Hopefully later tonight, because the DLCs are considerably shorter, even if some of them to a degree are more difficult, we're hoping to finish, we're about halfway through one of the DLCs, we're hoping to finish that one, and then we're hoping to move on and completely finish the other DLC tonight. Hilarity in so many different forms. There's many, many Gordon Ramsay moments from yours truly, because apparently that's what I do, and, well, I also knock Asians into pools with bananas to the head. And I think there's a couple of people out there that will attest to my laughter that just didn't stop for about 2-3 minutes straight. It was amazing. Try to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning, extremely loud. Anyway, what else do we have? Oh yes, this is something I talked about a little bit in 1 or 2 sections ago. Batman Hush is coming soon. It's coming in, I believe it's next week or the week after. That's going to be one that I'm going to be checking out. I obviously went into detail on that too. I'm also playing Wolfenstein Youngblood. I'm right at the end of it from what I can gather based on the story. I should be finished in maybe 1 to 2 hours. Probably 1 hour or less, knowing how everything's played out so far. And I don't know how I feel about. Well, I kind of do, but I don't like how I feel about it. It's very average. I played Wolfenstein: The New Order a couple of years ago, and that game was great. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, it played the same, but it was a little bit lackluster in what they had advertised and when it actually happened and whatnot. But overall, the gameplay and the quality was still the same. New Colossus was a very big step back, a very, very big quality drop. A lot of it was okay at best, and then when the game really did get going, it turns out you were in the second last room of the entire game, and then it ended about 10 minutes later. So that was kind of worrying, or kind of had me disheartened. And the fact that this game was advertised very differently and was marketed very differently, and it seemed to be very different. There's an RPG system kind of into it. You level up, you put skill points into stuff, you can get weapon upgrades with currency you find around the world, essentially. Some of it doesn't work well, and some of it just feels tacked on and average at best. So I don't really know how I feel about it. It has one or two points of resemblance to maybe the New Order or even New Colossus for a while, but it just doesn't ring the same bells. It doesn't hit the same points. It's serviceable, especially considering it's only €30, which is about half price or so of a regular release. But I don't know. Once I finish it, I think I'm done with it forever, probably. But I don't know. But just we'll pretty much end it there anyway. Before I move on to the proper final ending of the video, I will say that, like I said, just a quick reminder, I am starting my new job tomorrow. Obviously it's full-time managerial position, just like the one I'm in now, but there's a little bit of traveling involved. I've got to go up to Dublin and all too, and while I'm getting everything situated and all that too, there will be a little bit of a disruption for maybe about 2 weeks or so, because of, well, once I get the swing of things, have to factor in when I can do stuff, what I can and can't do, what should wait, what shouldn't wait, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. So bear with me on that for maybe about 2 weeks or so. We'll see how the videos, the streams, the podcasts all get back to normal. And on top of that, what's going to be cool pretty soon as well, hopefully, well, depending on when you're seeing this, hopefully by late this week or early next week, I will have a nice new little video about my brand new motorcycle. I can't wait for it. It's been my first bike in about 2-ish years, I think. I can't remember when I sold my previous one. I want to say it was 2017. Can't be 100% sure, but I want to say it was 2017. And I've been wanting to do it for a few months now, and the new job basically gave me the perfect reason to, because I'd rather commute on my bike, a brand new, nice, shiny July 2019 bike, compared to just getting on a train every morning or whatever. And this is the best of both worlds. So I'll make a little video, maybe throw out some couple of pictures and tweets about that whenever that comes, later this week or end of next week, or end of this week or the following week. Anyway, that's it. That's it for episode 17 of our Quack Experimental Podcast. I want to thank every single one of you for joining me on this. Is there a number for it? This exciting escapade of gaming news and, well, other stuff too. But anyway, as always, let me know in the comment section below about any of the topics in this video today, as well as if there's anything you think might pique your interest or might pique my interest. Feel free to either drop it in a comment below, slide on into the DMs. They are open on Twitter for that, as well as many other reasons. So let me know all that good stuff, as well as hit the appropriate button. Let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over and hit the subscribe button and even ring the little notification bell. Granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a new video upload or live stream or whatever is a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried to be there for the brand new Quack Experimental Podcast episode every week, whenever it drops. Every weekend, I should say, whenever it drops. But anyway, until then, as always, I want to remind everyone that winners don't play switchboards.